Life is one big negotiation, because when you think about it, what is it? It's a conversation with a purpose. Whether or not you're with your kids, your spouse, your neighbors, your colleagues, your clients, your community, other countries, whatever it is, whatever level you want to play at, it's a conversation with a purpose. And ultimately, it's about you trying to bring about some form of cooperation or collaboration with somebody else. And I just happen to spend a lot of time trying to be reasonable with unreasonable people demanding unreasonable things.
So where did this all begin for you? How did you sort of get into negotiations? How did you sort of enter into this world? I don't think you go to school when you're a kid and say, you know, when I grow up, I'm going to go negotiate a hijacked pirate ship, right? Or pirates that have hijacked the ship.
Did you not get that school careers advice, Greg? No, I mean, nor did I, where it's like, do you want to be a train driver? Do you want to be a lawyer or a dentist or something? Or how about a kidnap for ransom negotiator? No, that never happened. But I was always an inquisitive child, always asking why, probably to the definitely to the annoyance and frustration of parents and grandparents. I was just super curious about the world around me and the people around me. And I kind of fell into being a cop for 16 years, as a detective, organized crime, counterterrorism, as well as being a street cop. And I loved every single day because I was always on the front foot, always forward leaning, always looking to get stuck in and involved in whatever was going on, really. And, then towards the end of my career, with about 5 years left to go, I bumped into a colleague of mine in the canteen in the police station one day. And I'd been promoted a couple of times at this point. And, the most danger I was in at that point was getting paper cuts and a sore backside from being sat down at a desk all day. And he was just regaling me of these tales of how he managed to help secure the release of a hostage from an Albanian gang in London. I just thought, you know what? I want some of that. And put me in touch with the right people, and I applied and eventually got in, and then spent 10 years, 15 years now of doing that, both from a police perspective, but predominantly in the private sector. And going back to the point you made at the very beginning, actually, you were spot on. Life is one big negotiation, because when you think about it, what is it? It's a conversation with a purpose. Whether or not you're with your kids, your spouse, your neighbors, your colleagues, your clients, your community, other countries, whatever it is, whatever level you want to play at, it's a conversation with a purpose. And ultimately, it's about you trying to bring about some form of cooperation or collaboration with somebody else. And I just happen to spend a lot of time trying to be reasonable with unreasonable people demanding unreasonable things.
Right. I guess that's part of the mindset, right? And I want to get to what are some of those actual skills that we could really sort of beef up on and work that will help me be a better negotiator. But before we go there, do you remember your first negotiation? Like that first big crazy sort of spotlight case? What was that like?
Yeah, it was my first and almost my last. Because when I first got into this world, I was quite a stressed out guy, quite argumentative, driven lots by ego. I was a career detective, thought I knew everything. And I remember getting the phone call. It was 2 a.m. and it's always 2 a.m. on a Sunday morning or some ridiculous time. And a young lad had been taken by another gang, and they were torturing him and demanding some money. And my job was to race across London, get alongside a family, reassure them, and help strategize and come up with what we needed to say, what they needed to say to the kidnappers to help get their son back. And as the days went on, a couple of days there, this tiny cramped flat, the family just weren't listening to me. And I was getting more and more frustrated because it's really obvious to me about what needed to happen. I thought I was communicating effectively to them. And I thought I was, empathizing. I was an empathizing legend. But clearly not, because after about 2 days in, I almost lost my temper with them. I was just like, the frustration built up, and I'm like, what is it about this that you don't get? Why can't you see what you need to do? And there was silence. They looked at me, they looked at me, and then that calm, reassuring but firm squeeze on my shoulder from a far more experienced client who was there, a colleague who was there, who'd done many, many years as a negotiator. It just interrupted my pattern. And then I stepped back and I watched the masterclass in how he was able to bring about that cooperation and collaboration and influence and persuade and build that rapport with a family to the extent that they were literally eating out of his hand, you know, in terms of what to do next. And so that was my first real case. And actually was in that I probably felt the most at risk physically, because the kidnappers, one of their messages, one of their phone calls with the family was, "We know the police are with you," and they gave the address, "and we're going to send some boys around with a Mac 10 machine gun and we're going to spray the place." And I was just thinking, what? This is not what I signed up for. What's all this? And in the end, we managed to get round that. But at that point, I was thinking, wow, this was certainly a baptism of fire.
Wow, no kidding. So, I mean, this sounds like a movie, right? So some family's kid is kidnapped. I mean, I don't know if you're allowed to say, but what kind of family were they? Was this like a cartel family? Was this like just a regular old family that found themselves on the wrong side of a situation? How does that even happen?
Yeah, certainly in say London or the UK, Europe, Western Europe, America, North America, when young people get kidnapped, it's usually because they've got mixed up with the wrong sort of people. And in this particular case, decent family, but the young son had gone off the rails, probably got involved in a bit of drugs. Actually, we later found out, and he'd ripped off one of the gangs, and they wanted their retribution. Simple as that. And so, as the professional cop, we weren't really in a position, because people often ask, "Well, why didn't you just let them get on with it? Why did you get involved? You know, he's no loss to society." I'm thinking, we don't play judge, jury, and executioner here. We still have to show up, and we still, you know, treat those human lives as what they are, human lives, and look to get them back.
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I just thought of this, like in the world that we're living in today, I mean, how common is it to be kidnapped? Like, is this a, might sound like a silly question, but is this sort of like a rare sort of, 5-10% of the world, or is it, this is quite the common thing that's happening in the world, like kidnapping and hostage taking and, holding people for ransom, like companies?
We don't actually know the exact number of kidnappings a year, because inevitably, think about it, the countries where a lot of this is taking place, the governments aren't going to say, "Hey, we're the kidnap hotspot of the world," because they want the business development, they want the investment, they want the tourism. And so we reckon that there's around anywhere between 30 and 50,000 kidnappings a year worldwide. Reported is probably closer to 10,000. And in the UK, I'm in London, for example, there was about one a week on average. It's probably gone down a bit now, maybe, but it was about one a week. Globally, most of those will be of local nationals, amongst families, between community groups and whatever. But occasionally you'll get the business traveler, the tourist that gets targeted and gets taken. And they happen pretty frequently. Well, I say frequently, there'll be several hundred of those a year probably that happen worldwide.
That's crazy. Any previous cases that still keep you up at night?
No, not that keep me up. And I deliberately, when I first got into this, I thought I've got to show up and be there to support the family or the company to get their loved one back. I developed this approach of, I can observe, but I can't absorb. If I allow myself to be absorbed by the emotions, by the trauma, by the stress and the anxiety that inevitably comes into these kind of situations, I'd never be able to do my job objectively and at the highest level. So no, because I always, again, there's this test I created for myself and now I teach clients now, really, it's the mirror never lies test. And that is, you can BS anybody else all day long. But when you look in the mirror at the end of the day, you're going to know if you've done your best, if you've shown up, if you've been professional, or you've just dabbled at it, or you've had people over, or if you haven't, you've had a poor intention. So the mirror never lies. And I always knew that at the end of each day, the outcome is so uncertain in a kidnapping. You do everything, but there's still lots of things that could go wrong. But I always knew that if I could pass that test at the end of each day, I'd be able to sleep soundly at night.
Yeah, listen, I think it's true. And even in industries or work like therapy, right, or psychology, there's a certain detachment that you need to sort of operate with, right? Otherwise, you're not effective at your role. Let's switch into skill sets. So, and maybe let me get your opinion on this. So one of the things that I maybe sort of emphasize when it comes down to negotiations, and by the way, by no means do I claim to be an expert when it comes down to teaching negotiations, but teach a lot of things like effective communication skills and emotional intelligence and self-awareness and, things like persuasion and listening. And one of the things that I sort of emphasize when it comes down to negotiation skills is the importance of sort of thinking with the concept of compromise, right? So not collaboration, but compromise, which is in order for me to get, I got to give. So couple questions. First, what are your thoughts on that? And second, what are some of the other skills that we could work on that would allow me to be more of an effective negotiator?
Okay, let's take your first point around compromising. There'd be cases where there'd be 6 hostages and they wanted 3 million for 6. And so a compromise could be, I tell you what, Scott, if you give us 1.5 million, we'll release 3 of the hostages. It's like, I can't do that. So I still need to be able to get what I want. And so my red line is, hey, I'm taking all 6. I'm not going to stop to get all 6. And so I need to go through a process in order to get there. All right. If I just start demanding at the beginning without taking the time to work through a bit of a sequence with a bit of a process, it's not going to land well. So definitions matter here, but if you say, okay, if you're looking at compromises, actually both sides need to walk away feeling like they've got a good deal. The challenge is compromise is a loaded term with, I've had to give up something less than what I wanted in order to make this deal happen. And I think if you find yourself in that position, you've missed a trick and you left money either literally or metaphorically on the table. So I'm a big believer in really early on, find out what are the real issues, not what the perceived issues are or the challenges or the desired outcomes, but get deep below the surface. What's this really about? And there usually be lots of emotions involved in that. And by doing that, you kind of understand what is driving the other side. What are their needs, beliefs, values, rules? What's their model of the world? How do they interpret things? Because actually their identity, it could be about saving face. It could be some perception or however they see themselves in the world. And you've got to be able to understand what that is. Because if you can meet those needs to be in control, bit of certainty, whatever it is, then actually you're going to bring about an even better deal. So I try and avoid the term compromise because it's so loaded. And what I really strive for is cooperation and collaboration. And when you think about it, to bring about cooperation and collaboration, it's about influence. I need to be able to influence not only myself, but I need to be able to influence you. But I can't influence you unless I already know what influences you. And so the challenge is, if I'm in such a rush to problem solve, to close the deal, to get the signature, I might struggle to do that properly, because I want you to come back time and time and time again. I want you to be a client, a customer, a colleague for life. I want a queue of people outside my office, outside my company, wanting to do business with me or coming to work for me. And so this is why I need to take my time, relatively speaking, in order to get under the hood. And the way we do that, to bring about, to earn the right to influence, is we have to establish trust. I have to be able to trust you, and you have to trust me. And in a kidnap negotiation, trust is the primary factor in success or otherwise, believe it or not. And bear in mind, it's the most unregulated, dangerous industry in the world, yet there's a 93% chance of success because trust has been established.
Right. So it sounds like there's a level of control that you need to move into when it comes down to negotiations, right? Which is controlling the communication or controlling the interaction.
Yes.
And maybe that's too strong of a definition, but would you, yeah?
I would say, yeah, again, these terms can be misinterpreted. When we say control, it's not about manipulating at all, really, or being Machiavellian. Like let's take a kidnapping case and I'll apply it to business. If I'm on a kidnapping case, and it's going to take roughly 6 weeks to negotiate the release. In this part of the world, wherever it is, West Africa, it's going to take 4 to 6 weeks to secure the release of an expat, say. But if I'm going to be available on the phone 24/7, 365 over those 6 weeks, I'm going to burn out. It's going to be too much. So what I want to do quite quickly is bring about what's called a call window. So I want to get to the stage pretty quickly where I'm nudging the kidnappers, I'm influencing them to, okay, between 2 and 4 o'clock every day will be available for your call. The rest of the time, Mr. Kidnapper, I'm going to switch the phone off because I'm going to be so busy trying to raise the money for you and to get you what you want that I haven't got time to be by the phone, but I will be there between 2 and 4. And that enables us to rest in between, recover, eat, sleep, negotiate, build on this negotiation strategy, try and get the money together, whatever it is. And so there's an element of control there. And you're right, there's also control around the communications. Because in the early stages of a kidnapping, the kidnappers will look to divide and rule. They'll look to contact so many people to sow seeds of doubt and confusion, multiple demands coming in. So very quickly, I want to get the kidnappers using one phone number that we're going to give them, a clean phone. And the only people on the planet that know that number are the kidnappers because we've given it to them and ourselves. No one else is going to get involved. Everyone else is going to be given a script. If kidnappers phone you, just direct them to this number. So yes, I'm bringing control of the comms of the situation. I'm bringing control of, okay, what we're going to say and how we're going to say it. And that starts to, and then you show up when you're meant to show up. So if I say I'm going to be on the phone between 2 and 4, to develop that trust, I need to be available between 2 and 4. And conversely, they do as well. And so it's that's how you work with it.
Yeah. How do you build trust, right? In these, not just in these cases, but generally. I mean, what are the ways we build trust?
Yeah, credibility. I follow through with what I say I'm going to do. So if I say to you, say we're discussing a deal, and the first part of that is an initial part of the project I need to deliver on, then I need to follow through with that and say, actually, Greg, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to follow through and do it. And even if I can't, I'm going to give you plenty of notice and give you an alternative to do that. Because things go wrong, circumstances happen. I can give a case study later on about where that happened. It's in a kidnapping case. If it can go wrong, it will go wrong. But trust takes time to build. And you need to demonstrate a capability and also credibility. And that's how that works.
Interesting. Have you ever heard of the trust formula? You'll like this, actually. You could beg, borrow, and duplicate it, right?
Well, I've heard of a few variations. So go on. What's this?
All right. So it says trust equals credibility plus reliability plus intimacy divided by self-orientation. So credibility being, as you said, the capability, reliability being you consistently show up and follow through and do you deliver, intimacy, social connection, relatability, right? Insight to each other's lives. While those areas could be perfect, if the person feel on the other end that everything coming out of your mouth is coming from a self-orientation standpoint, right? It ruins your trust level, right? And even its language, right? So look, I'm going to try to sort of get you the money versus we are doing everything we can to engage. So the exercise in this, specifically for more of the ego type of personality, is to bring down that self-orientation level, right? So it's
absolutely
not perceive that it's just everything coming out of your mouth is for you.
And the best negotiators, in my experience, will use the plural, we, us, our. And you know that actually you're talking to somebody who knows what they're talking about here, as opposed to me, myself, and I. And actually, if it's all I and me and mine and my, I would be worried. I'd want more proof of life of the hostages or in business. I want to get some demonstration that they're going to follow through. You know, you want to do really early test close with clients like that.
Let's switch to business, right? Not everyone's negotiating kidnaps or kidnapping and hostage situations. From a business standpoint, what advice could we give the audience when it comes down to them being more effective in just the everyday negotiations, right? When it comes down to them thriving and scaling their businesses, winning clients, all that good stuff.
I mean, ultimately, most people's desired outcome when they negotiate is to close better deals, communicate more effectively, and be able to thrive under the pressure. You know, there's no difference whether or not it's kidnappers, kids, or in business. And there's a process that you need to be able to work on your own mindset first. You need to be able to realize that it's not about you. Because if, say, you and I are in a business, either internally or you're a potential client or customer of mine, I need to work from the basis of, all right, I need to seek first to understand what's Greg all about? What motivates him? What's his world like? What's his pain points? And I'm going to bring more curiosity than assumption to the table. Yes, I can do my preparation. I can do my due diligence. There's a limit to that though, because if I go in having done hours and hours of preparation done on LinkedIn and due diligence, there's a danger of me coming in with a slightly closed mind thinking I've got it all. Whereas actually I want to go, Greg, tell me, what's life about for you? Okay, I appreciate that's not going to be necessarily a relevant example, but it's, right. I want to find out.
But it's very relevant, right? I think I love what you just said, which is if we're not careful in all of your exercise to be prepared for the negotiation, you're going to end up effing yourself up because you're going to go in with too many perceptions and, as you said, closed mind. And one of the most important things you can show up at the table with is more of an open mindset to learn and be curious and, dig for that sort of background information more.
Yeah. And so now when I work with businesses, when we'll have the initial call, if we're going into some coaching with them or deliver some workshops for them, I would deliberately not do much research on the individual, the leader I'm speaking with, or the company, because I want to be able to find out from speaking and listening to them. I want to bring a beginner's mind to that conversation. And then I do that by something called level 5 listening. And so level 1 will be something like, you're just waiting to talk. And I'm sure we've all been in conversations where you can tell the other person that literally can't wait for you to shut up because they want to say what they want to say. And no, I'm not going to listen to that. I'm not going to listen moving down at that levels. I'm not going to just listen to rebut your argument. I'm not listening half-heartedly, actually thinking about the Amazon delivery or what's for lunch. I want to get to level 5, which is that deep, empathetic listening where I'm really tuning in for maybe what's not being said, for your point of view, is there a mismatch? Is there a misalignment between what you're saying and how you're saying it? And if in face to face, is there some disconnect with your body language? Do I think that actually you're not coming across as that authentic here? But if I'm worrying about what's for lunch or about the next meeting I'm going to go to, I'm going to miss some of those cues. And so that deep level 5 listening then enables me to demonstrate empathy. Now, people misconceive or misunderstand what empathy is. It's a doing word. You do empathy. Yeah, I'm going to agree with somebody. Yeah, I'm going to condone or acquiesce. Yeah, I'm going to feel their pain with them. None of that. All it is, it's me taking the time to demonstrate my understanding of where I think you're at, either emotionally, with this deal, with the situation, with the circumstances. And that is so powerful if I do that, particularly when we disagree on a topic. So say you and I are stuck in a business negotiation, we're not going very far. I'd say something like, Greg, is it okay if I just share with you where I think you're at with this deal right now? You think, or it seems to me like you think we're trying to extend this deal because it means more money for us and less money for you. Or it sounds like from what you're saying, you're really frustrated with the pace of progress here, that we're maybe even looking to even rip you off, or we're trying to sell you a cheaper, low grade material than what was originally agreed. And you'll go, no, it's actually this instead. And that's fine. That's okay, because I've demonstrated an intent there. Or you'll go, yeah, that you're right. That's it. Spot on. And what that does, it enables you to feel to achieve the gold medal of negotiation and communication generally, which is to be seen, heard, and understood. Now, in reality, I might think, what is all the fuss about? You're moaning about nothing. You've been really demanding. This is a really good deal for you. I can't believe you're actually putting obstacles in the way, but it doesn't matter because I'm seeking first to understand. I'm bringing curiosity rather than assumption. I'm making the effort to empathize, to demonstrate to you so you feel seen, heard, and understood. That helps us build that rapport, which in turn establishes the trust. Then, and only then, have I earned the right to start influencing, persuading you by making certain requests. Okay, which if I try to do that, if I try to problem solve at the beginning, you would have walked away from the table.
For the audience, I'm smiling because I'm listening to Scott talk about the stages of listening, level 5 listening and level 1, which coincidentally, Scott, I was having the same conversation the other day in one of my leadership programs, which is one of those different levels of listening, right? And correct me if I'm right or wrong. Level 2 is level 1 is just listening to talk. Level 2 is listening to hear. I think level 3 is listening to understand. I don't know what level 4 is, and then level 5 is what you described.
Well, the way I mean, there's different versions of it, but mine essentially is that number 1 is you're just listening for the gist,
for the jumping in, right? Your jumping in point.
Then you go, I'm listening to rebut, to actually criticize or contradict what they're saying, to give my perspective. Then you're listening for the logic. Then we go down to level 4, which I'm starting to listen to the emotion now. Well, what are you feeling? Frustrated, happy, angry, sad, whatever it is, disappointed. And then finally, level 5, it's that point of view, listening for the point of view, listening for your belief system, listening for congruency. And often that shows up in what is not being said rather than the words that are used.
That's super, super helpful. And I'm getting a sense of just the way you're describing this, like a lot of the communication style is questions, right? So we're listening, but we're utilizing questions to get them to share that insight, that information so we can absorb it. Mm-hmm. Right? Cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Good old open questions. The what, how, which, when, what. Yeah, you want to be, it's that fine line between it not sounding like an interrogation, which is why we would then also use some specific skills such as labeling, emotional labeling, which is prefaced by it looks like, it sounds like, it feels like. Anybody familiar with this, these techniques would have heard these before. But then you may have heard them before, but are you practicing them and have you mastered them at a deep level consistently? The answer is probably less so. And so being able to just label where I think it sounds like you're really frustrated, Greg, with my argument for why we need to close this deal by the end of the week. And the other thing is paraphrasing and summarizing, which is the example I gave to you. Is it okay if I just share with you where I think you're at right now? And I just summarized and paraphrased what I perceive to be going on inside your head. And it's, people go, well, if I do that, Scott, surely I'm going to interject. I'm going to bring stuff I don't want to bring into the conversation and may derail the deal. It's there anyway. It's the elephant in the corner or in the subconscious. And by taking the time and effort to bring it front and center, to embrace conflict, so to speak, to deal with it, to overcome it, actually you're going to come out the other side stronger and in a better place as far as the conversation and the negotiation is than had you just pretended and hoped for the best that it wasn't there.
Mm-hmm. Well, you mentioned earlier, trust is one of the most important things that we could engage or end up with. I sometimes remind people that trust is an outcome of what you do, right? Not because you show up and say, well, you should trust me, right? There's that self-orientation again. But the other thing that I heard you talk a lot about was the importance of when you do this well, you're treating people with significance, priority, importance, insight, like you're understanding their needs. And, one of our core human needs is significance, right? We need to feel important, seen and heard and understood and, listened to, right? I think if you think about marriages, this is where the argument kicks in, right? And either one party says to the other, you're not listening to me, or, it ends up with you misunderstood what I was saying, right? And I don't think people spend enough time in communication leaning into that as a foundation, which is let's ensure there's understanding here, right? Because with that, we can build upon it. Very cool.
Yeah. And I think in 80%, at least 80% of negotiations, business, kidnapping, kids, whatever, people want to save face. If you can help the other person walk away from this feeling as if they can go back to their company, their tribe, their family, whatever it is, and feel as if they can hold their head up and go, hey, you know what? I had to work for this, but this is what I've got. Then you're going to find it a lot easier to get that deal, as opposed to you trying to hammer somebody into the ground as in I won and you've lost.
Cool. Man, time flies. So I want to squeeze this in just before we get to the top of the hour. What is the craziest story you can share with us when it comes down to the world of policing and negotiating and being a detective?
Yeah, wow. I'll give one that I often share because the others are kind of subject to non-disclosures, but the one that kind of incorporates everything was a few years ago. I was overseas, thousands of miles away from home, and I'm sat in a windowless room in an embassy somewhere. And a few days previously, about a week before, 6 people had been taken off a ship by pirates. The ship had been hijacked and they'd been taken ashore. And we hadn't heard from the kidnappers, and I'm getting a bit nervous because I'm sat there, government officials, representatives of the company and the family, and we should have heard something by now. And as the days go on and we still haven't heard anything, I'm a bit like a swan. I'm gliding gracefully. But underneath, I'm thinking, wow, come on, this needs to work out. They need a vote. And then the call comes in. Everybody jumps, myself included, even though I've done this hundreds of times before. And the person I'm using as the communicator for language, because language barrier, Mr. John, I'll call him, he presses the call accept button and it's like, hello. And the kidnappers are like, hello. We've got your people and we want $5 million or they'll die. And then they hang up. And it was like looking around thinking, what are we going to do now? It's like, okay, well, we know what we're going to do. We've already got the strategy in place. We now need to work out what are you willing and able to pay. And we can't rush this. If we rush it, they're going to just end up asking for more and holding out. And so we need to embrace the conflict. We need to go, actually, well, they're not going to get 5 million. They may get a couple of 100,000 at best. And so as the weeks go on, we actually get the demand down from 5 million down to about 500,000. All right. So we're doing really, really well, really well. And the reason we're doing that is because if we suddenly pay too much too soon, what's going to happen? Kidnappers are going to go, well, thanks for the down payment. Thanks for the deposit. We're going to keep the money. We're going to keep the courier as another hostage. And actually, we might just kill the hostages and be done with it. So we have to make them work for it. And but it's taking its toll on the guy I'm using as the communicator, Mr. John. He's a broken man. He hasn't shaved in days. He hasn't showered in even longer. And I know this because I'm sat next to him for 16 hours a day for weeks on end. And the phone rings again. He answers it and I'm right next to him. We've scripted what we're going to say for each call. And they're like, where's our money? And he's like, yeah, you must be patient. We're working hard. We're a small company. We need more time. And please look after my friends. They're your responsibility. And then this booming voice comes out of the phone going, no, they're yours. The money by Friday or they die. And this is about Tuesday now at this point. And then you can hear a pin drop until Mr. John's fist comes smashing down on the table. And then he stands up. I'm thinking, oh, okay, here we go. And he walks towards me. I think he's going to go for me, but he turns and he leaves the room, storms out the room. I'm thinking, right, got to take a risk here. Got to take the initiative. Got trust. I've built some trust with the kidnappers. They can wait. All right. I need to get the cooperation and collaboration of Mr. John, because if I don't have that, this is over. He's the only one who can speak to them. And so I then spend the next 24, 36 hours engaging with him, really empathizing, validating, demonstrating, understand where he's coming from, all of that stuff that we've touched on. Real level 5 listening. And eventually it works, because then on the Wednesday night, coming to Thursday morning, he's showered and shaved, he's suited and booted, and he walks in the room and he's ready to go. Phone call happens, and we get a deal for $300,000. And we think, great. And everybody's celebrating. But here's the thing. Agreement is not the same as the release. Just like in a business deal, just because someone says yes, until the money's in your account or whatever it is, it's not over. And so we managed to get somebody to take the money in cash, the ransom money in cash, across the border from one country to the next. And every 4 hours, he needs to check in with me because the kidnappers are phoning and they want an update. 4 hours go by, nothing. 8 hours go by, nothing. 12 hours go by, nothing. I'm thinking, oh God, it's all unraveling. And then 13, 14 hours later, we get a call. He's been intercepted, arrested by the local police who've got wind of this and are refusing to release him or the money. Meanwhile, the kidnappers are going apoplectic, thinking we're trying to ambush them. All that trust is evaporating. Finally managed to fly somebody down, release the courier and the money, well, most of the money, local taxes and everything. And we think, great, the courier can get back on the way again. But he refuses. He legs it with his cut. So I have to find somebody else. Meanwhile, the kidnappers are just losing it. Get somebody else, takes the money, goes out to sea to a waypoint in a boat. Kidnappers come out with the money, with the hostages. Money's handed over. And this is one of those very, very rare scenarios where there's a simultaneous exchange of money for hostages. Doesn't normally happen like that in the movies. And they turn around and say, this is customer service for you. We're going to escort you back to safety. And here's a clean mobile phone. If you get into any other trouble whilst you're in country, give us a call and we'll come and help you out for free. And they come back and the hostages get checked out. But that was a really good example of if it can go wrong, it will go wrong. But all the principles that we've gone through really came to the forefront there. And it resulted in a really good outcome.
Man, what an interesting life start. Wow. And super cool that you're teaching this stuff. I think,
Thank you.
In a lot of cases, that's the responsibility we have in life, right? Which is to teach and to mentor. Scott, for the audience, let's drop some of your links. Tell us about the book, where they can get it, your website, and then anything else that you are working on.
Yeah, absolutely. The book is available wherever books are sold. You can go online, Amazon, go to Barnes & Noble in the US or Waterstones or wherever in the UK and elsewhere. So it's available there now. People can go to the website, winanynegotiation.com. They can sign up to get the weekly newsletter, find out about workshops and all other training and courses to help them become not only a world-class communicator, but really learn how they can negotiate those better deals, whatever aspects of life they're looking at, and be able to thrive under pressure as well.
Super cool. Once again, the audience, we're going to have all of this in the show notes, but Order Out of Chaos is the book's title. And Win Any Negotiation, no S, just negotiation.com. And we'll have that in the show notes for you. Scott, at the end of the episode, we come to the most important question, which is, what do you think we could all do to be better humans tomorrow?
I think it's about actually you first seek to understand and being able to emotionally regulate. If we can emotionally self-regulate, the world would be a better place. And I think it takes practice. Hey, life gives you plenty of opportunity every single day to practice this. We just need to embrace it, learn how to self-regulate, and that would just make our whole lives, personally and professionally, a whole lot easier and more enjoyable, and would always achieve a lot more as well.
It's amazing. It's a lot of what I talk about, which is and teach understanding and emotional intelligence, which is regulation. Love that, Scott. Scott Walker, ladies and gentlemen, big round of applause, whether you're sitting in the car, whether you're sitting at the house, whether you're sitting in the office listening to this. Go and follow him also on social. In fact, Scott, I just connected with you this morning. Check out his website and definitely order the book. As usual, if you like today's episode, subscribe. Don't forget to like it. Don't forget to maybe 5-star it. Don't forget to share it, and keep supporting. Stay happy, stay healthy, and we will see all of you next week.